My parents sold my savings to fund my sister's weddings, so I walked out and secured my future. Without telling them a thing, I'm a 29-year-old guy. And for as long as I can remember, I've been the one holding my family together. Growing up, money was always tight in our house. My dad worked at an auto shop, my mom took part-time shifts at a local bakery, and somehow we still never had enough. I learned early on that if I wanted stability, I'd have to build it myself. By 16, I was working weekends at a hardware store, saving every dollar in a little blue folder I kept under my bed. While other kids spent their money on sneakers or parties, I was thinking about down payments and credit scores. Then there was my sister Bella, the golden child. 2 years younger, effortlessly charming, and, according to my parents, destined for great things. She never had to lift a finger. My mom would gush, "She's our only daughter. She deserves the best," while my dad chuckled and nodded like it was gospel. Meanwhile, I was the one patching holes in the wall, changing light bulbs, and taking on extra shifts when Dad's hours got cut. I didn't resent Bella at first, not really. I told myself that families just worked that way. One child got the attention, the other got the responsibility. But deep down, a quiet bitterness was forming, one I refused to acknowledge. Still, I kept pushing forward. I built my savings slowly, carefully, watching the balance grow with a sense of pride that was mine alone. Every dollar felt like a brick in the foundation of my future, a home I could finally call my own, free from chaos and dependency. Last week I finally reached my goal. After 13 years of work, overtime, and sacrifice, I had enough for a down payment. For the first time in my life, I thought, maybe things are finally turning around. I had no idea how quickly that dream was about to shatter. My parents always had a way of making dysfunction look normal. My mom ruled the house with guilt and emotion, while my dad preferred to stay quiet, pretending ignorance was the same as peace. If Mom wanted something, she'd cry until she got it. If Dad disagreed, he'd sigh, mutter, "Whatever makes you happy," and go back to his newspaper. That was the rhythm of our home. Manipulation disguised as love. Bella thrived in it. She'd flash that perfect smile and say things like, "Mom, I can't wear the same dress twice," or "Dad, I deserve something nice once in a while," every time they'd cave. Meanwhile, I was the one they called the responsible one, which was just code for the one who will clean up our messes. When Dad's car broke down, I covered the repair bill. When Mom's hours got cut at the bakery, I quietly slipped her a few hundred to help with groceries. It wasn't gratitude I got in return, it was expectation. Helping became my identity. If I hesitated, I was met with the same line every time. "You're the strong one." Family sacrifices for each other. So when Bella got engaged, it wasn't surprising that the whole house erupted in excitement. My mom nearly cried when Bella showed off her ring, squealing, "Our baby's getting married." For weeks, all anyone talked about was the wedding, the dress, the flowers, the venue. Every conversation circled back to Bella's special day. But then the tone changed. My mom started dropping comments like, "We'll need everyone to pitch in, and you've always been so good with finances. Maybe you can help us plan the costs." Something in her voice made me uneasy, that familiar, syrupy tone she used whenever she was about to cross a line. A few days later, I got a call from her. Her voice was calm. "To calm, sweetheart," she said. "We need to talk about something important. It's about Bella's wedding." When my mom asked me to come over that night, I didn't think much of it. She said Dad would be there too, and that it was a family discussion. Those words always made my stomach tighten. It was never a discussion, it was an ambush wrapped in guilt. I showed up after work, still in my dusty work boots, and found them sitting at the kitchen table like judges ready to deliver a sentence. My mom was smiling too much, her tone rehearsed. "We didn't want to worry you," she began, "but we had to make a quick financial decision." My heart sank. "What decision?" She clasped her hands together. "We used some of your savings just for Bella's wedding deposit? It's only temporary." For a second, I thought I misheard her. "You used my savings?" Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. Mom's voice got softer, manipulative. "It's family money, honey. You've always said we're in this together. Bella deserves a good start, doesn't she? My throat went dry. That account had nearly every cent I'd worked for since I was 16. You took everything, I whispered. Mom frowned, like I was the one being unreasonable. Not everything we left you, some? You'll have plenty of time to save again. Something inside me snapped. I asked how they even got access. She admitted she'd used the old joint account I'd opened years ago when I was helping them pay bills. They drained it behind my back. I wanted to yell, to throw something, but I just stood there, numb. Dad finally muttered, "It's for the family, son. Don't make this harder than it needs to be." That was the moment it hit me. To them, I wasn't a son. I was a resource, and that realization hurt worse than the theft itself. For days after that conversation, I couldn't focus on anything. I went to work, swung my hammer, smiled at my coworkers, but inside, I was hollow. The thought of my parents sitting there, calmly justifying stealing my life savings, looped in my head like a broken record. I kept checking my bank app, hoping it was some mistake, but the number never changed. The account was practically empty. When I confronted them again, Mom just sighed, like I was a difficult child. "You're being dramatic," she said. "It's not like we spent it on nonsense, it's for Bella's future. You can't put a price on family happiness." Bella didn't even pretend to care. She smirked when I told her I was furious. "Relax. You'll make it back. You're good with money. Besides, it's my wedding, not a funeral." She actually laughed. That was the moment I realized there was no line they wouldn't cross. Every sacrifice I'd made, every bill I'd paid, every hour I'd work, meant nothing to them. My father just stayed quiet, like always, picking at his fingernails while my mom lectured me about being selfish. "You've always been the strong one," she said softly, "and you'll understand one day. Bella's our only daughter. We just want her to have her dream wedding." I stared at her, trying to process how easily she'd twisted the narrative. Somehow I was the villain for wanting to keep my money. When I left their house that night, I didn't slam the door or shout. I just walked out into the cool air, numb, the sound of Bella's laughter echoing behind me. The streetlights flickered as I got into my car, and for the first time I didn't feel like their son. I felt like their servant. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over, not by a long shot. After that night, something in me fractured. I kept trying to go about my routine: work, home, sleep, but it all felt meaningless. Every hour I spent earning money now reminded me that my parents had treated my hard work like their personal piggy bank. I couldn't eat without thinking about it. Couldn't sleep without replaying that moment when my mother said, "It's just family money." Weeks passed, and every interaction with them was colder, shorter. Mom acted like nothing had happened. She'd call and chirp, "Don't forget Bella's bridal shower. Bring your camera. You take such nice photos." I'd mutter something non-committal and hang up. I didn't have the energy to fight anymore at family dinners. Bella pranced around, showing off her ring and plans, bragging about the designer dress my money paid for. My parents looked at her like she was royalty. And me? I was invisible. The only time they acknowledged me was to ask if I could help out with wedding expenses a little more. One evening, Dad patted my shoulder and said, "You're doing a good thing, son. You're giving your sister the start she deserves." I stared at him and said quietly, "What about what I deserve?" He blinked, confused, like it had never even crossed his mind. That night, I lay awake in my tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling until dawn. The betrayal had settled into something colder: resolve. I realized no amount of explaining or guilt-tripping would ever change them. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as a tool, so I made a decision. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't warn them. I would disappear from their lives, completely and quietly, right after the wedding, and they'd never see it coming. A few weeks before the wedding, I was at my parents' house helping Dad fix a leaking pipe in the kitchen. One last act of the responsible son. Mom and Bella were in the living room, talking loudly on speakerphone with Bella's fiancé, Chase. I wasn't really listening until I heard Bella laugh and say, "Don't worry, Chase. My brother will cover anything your parents can't. He always does." I froze. Her tone wasn't joking. It was confident. entitled, like I was some sort of financial safety net written into their plans. When I walked into the room, they went silent. Bella's smile faltered, and Mom quickly said, "We were just discussing logistics." I looked straight at Bella. "You told him I'd pay for your wedding?" She rolled her eyes. "You're overreacting. I just said you'd help. Don't make it weird." It's that night I couldn't sleep. So I did something I hadn't done in months. I went through my finances. I double-checked every account, every asset. That's when I remembered the investment fund I'd started 2 years ago, separate from my main savings, something even my parents didn't know existed. It wasn't much, but it was enough to start over if I needed to. And suddenly, a plan started forming. I began moving things quietly, transferring small amounts from my paycheck into that private account, redirecting mail to a friend's address, even updating my job paperwork with a new location. My manager had been hinting at a transfer opportunity in another city, one that came with better pay and a fresh start by day. I was the same cooperative son, smiling through wedding prep, but by night I was erasing myself from their world. Piece by piece, let them believe I'd foot the bill forever. They'd soon realize they were wrong. In the most unexpected way possible, over the next few weeks, I perfected the art of pretending. Every phone call, every text, every dinner I played the part of the dutiful son one last time. Mom would gush about floral arrangements and seating charts. Bella would boss everyone around like a director on set. And I'd just nod, smile, and say, "Sounds great." I was counting the days. I quietly signed the transfer paperwork at work new branch, new city, 2 hours away. I found a modest apartment, small but peaceful, and started moving my things in slowly. I'd tell my parents I was working late, but really, I was packing up my life into boxes after dark. Each night, the more I removed from my old apartment, the lighter I felt. No one noticed. Not even Bella, who was too busy posting pictures of her bridal fittings online with captions like "fairy tales do come true." The irony made me sick sometimes. I'd stand in the middle of my new, half-furnished apartment and just breathe. For the first time in years, the air felt still. No guilt, no noise, no demands. Just silence, and I clung to it like oxygen. A week before the wedding, Mom called and said, "Make sure you dress sharp, sweetheart. People will be watching you too. You represent the family." I looked at the boxes stacked around me and replied softly, "Yeah, Mom, I know." She didn't realize I meant something entirely different. The night before the ceremony, I loaded the last box into my car. I left behind nothing but a note taped to my old door. "I'll see you at the wedding." I sat behind the wheel, staring at the streetlights flickering against the windshield. Wasn't just leaving my apartment that night. I was leaving. The version of me they'd taken advantage of for years. The morning of the wedding felt like a movie I didn't belong in. The venue was extravagant chandeliers, glittering like ice. Walls draped in gold fabric, tables lined with flowers that cost more than my monthly rent. Every detail screamed excess. I stood near the back, watching the circus unfold, realizing that almost everything around me was paid for with my blood. Sweat and stolen savings. Mom greeted guests like she was royalty. "We spared no expense," she bragged, smiling proudly. Dad nodded along, pretending he'd contributed more than silence. And Bella. She glided through the crowd like a queen, her designer gown shimmering under the lights. When her eyes met mine, there was no gratitude, just a smirk, smug, victorious, as if she'd won. During the ceremony, the priest began the usual vows, and I zoned out until I heard Bella's voice break slightly. She glanced toward me, then at the crowd, and said loudly, "I just want to thank my amazing brother for everything he's done for this wedding. None of this would have been possible without his sacrifices." The guests turned and clapped. Some even smiled at me, whispering things like, "What a generous brother." My face burned, but not from pride, from humiliation. She wasn't thanking me. She was showing me off, using me like another accessory. Mom beamed at me, mouthing, "Isn't she wonderful?" In that moment, something inside me went still. I didn't feel anger anymore or sadness. just a hollow calm. I smiled faintly, nodded once, and clapped with everyone else. But behind that calm expression, I'd already decided this would be the last time they'd ever see me play this role. When the ceremony ended, I slipped out quietly before the reception started. They didn't notice. They were too busy celebrating their perfect illusion. I didn't go home after the wedding. I didn't text, didn't call, didn't explain. Instead, drove straight to my new apartment, 2 cities away, and turned off my phone. The silence that followed was deafening at first. No buzzing notifications, no family group chats, no guilt. Just quiet. For the first time, I was completely free. The first few weeks felt strange. I still have expected my mom to show up at my door, crying, demanding answers. But no one came. Eventually, I started building my new routine, going to work, hitting the gym, cooking dinner, in peace. I even got promoted within a month of transferring. My boss called me focused and driven. He had no idea how much rage had fueled that focus. Then the messages started. Emails, voicemails, even letters. My mom's tone shifted from sweet to scathing. You're breaking your mother's heart. Family doesn't abandon family. Your sister needs her brother. I read every word once, then deleted them all. No response. The power of silence became addictive. They didn't know where I lived, where I worked, or how to reach me. I'd erased myself completely, and it terrified them. Months passed. I bought furniture, started saving again, and finally opened a new savings account under my name only. Watching the balance grow felt like reclaiming a part of myself they'd stolen. I even took weekend trips, something I'd never allowed before, because there was always another family emergency. Every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering if they missed me, if they realized what they'd done. But then I'd remember Bella's smirk, my mother's guilt trips, and my father's silence. No, they didn't miss me. They missed a version of me that kept them comfortable, and that version no longer existed. Nearly a year passed before I heard anything substantial. About them, a mutual friend from my hometown called out of the blue one evening. "Hey," he said awkwardly, "I thought you should know. Your parents sold the house." At first, I didn't react. But then he added they're in serious debt. Bella's husband left her. Apparently, the wedding cost more than anyone thought, and the loans caught up to them. I sat in silence, the words hitting me like slow waves. The house I'd helped maintain for years, the one I painted, repaired, and practically paid for, was gone. My parents had sold it to cover the chaos they created. They're saying you abandoned them when they needed you most. My friend continued. Your mom? She told people your disappearance broke the family apart. That part hurt more than I expected. I knew cutting them off was necessary. But hearing they were unraveling without me didn't feel victorious. It felt heavy. Later that night, I drove past our old neighborhood. The porch light was gone, the garden dead, and a for sale sign leaned crooked in the yard. The house looked smaller, sadder, like it carried the weight of every lie we ever lived in it. For a brief second, I thought about stopping, knocking on the door, asking if they were okay. But then I remembered standing in that same kitchen while my mother called me selfish for wanting to keep my savings. I remembered my father's silence as my future was stolen in front of me. The pity faded. I realized they hadn't fallen because I left. They fell because they built their happiness on someone else's. Sacrificed as I sat in my car, staring at the hollow shell of my childhood home. I whispered to myself, you sold everything, even me. And for the first time, I didn't feel guilty for driving away. By the time another year passed, my life looked nothing like the one I'd left behind. I had a steady job, a promotion, and enough savings to finally buy my own condo, something I'd dreamed of since I was 16. It wasn't huge or fancy, but it was mine. Every square foot, every piece of furniture was earned on my own terms. There was no one to drain it, no one to guilt me. Just peace. One afternoon, as I was unpacking a few boxes in my new place, I got a message request on social media. It was from Bella. Her profile picture was different. No designer dress, No sparkling smile. She looked tired, worn down. The message was short. Hey, I know you probably hate me, but I need help, please. For a long time, I didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet her at a cafe near my office. When I saw her, I almost didn't recognize her. The confidence was gone. She told me her husband had left after discovering she'd taken out loans in his name to cover wedding costs. Their apartment had been repossessed. Mom and Dad were renting a small place outside town, still blaming me for everything. I was awful to you, she said quietly. I just thought you'd always be there to fix things. I listened. Every word was like a distant echo of the past, familiar but hollow now. When she finished, I nodded and said, I hope you figure things out. Then I stood up and left. No anger. No satisfaction. Just peace. As I walked away, I realized revenge didn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it was silence. And silence, I'd learned, was the one thing they couldn't take from me. It's been 3 years since that day, and I haven't spoken to my parents or Bella since. Sometimes, I'll get a message from an unknown number, usually my mom, trying a new phone or account. They're always the same, guilt wrapped in sentiment. You'll regret turning your back on family. You've changed, son. Just want things to go back to normal. But there's no normal to go back to. The version of me that accepted manipulation and called it love doesn't exist anymore. These days, my life is quiet. Beautifully quiet. I wake up in my own home, make my own coffee, and go to a job that actually values me. Sometimes I'll sit by the window and think about how close I came to losing everything. Not because of strangers, because of the people I loved most. It's strange the hardest part wasn't cutting them off. It was realizing how easy it was once I finally did. I thought I'd be haunted by guilt forever. But over time, that guilt turned into clarity. Family is supposed to build you, not bleed you dry. Love isn't supposed to come with a price tag or a guilt trip. I used to think walking away made me cold. Now I see it was the warmest thing I could have done for myself sometimes. I wonder if they ever understood what they did, if they ever looked around their empty home and realized what it cost them to call betrayal family duty. Maybe they did. Maybe they didn't. Either way, it doesn't matter anymore, because they took my savings. But I took something they'll never get back, my freedom, my peace, and my future. And that, I've learned, is worth more than any money they ever stole.